Hello, welcome. Dr. Joanne T here. Our topic for today is going to be hypertension. Now, hypertension, we're going to address this disease in a couple of videos, 2 or 3, depending on our timing. Today, we are going to begin by some brief definition. Then we're going to talk about underlying causes, and we're going to look at some statistics and then look at complications of untreated hypertension. Okay, why do we want to talk about hypertension? Because this disease is so prevalent. It's everywhere in the world. A lot of people suffering under hypertension. It is known as the silent killer because people are just not aware when it begins. Hypertension, we want to draw awareness to hypertension, to its underlying causes, to what we can do to improve, prevent, or even reverse this disease. And we want to just spread out this knowledge. So people, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. And then please share this information far and wide. Okay, let's begin. All right, we're beginning with the definition of hypertension. Hypertension is blood pressure readings which are above or higher than the upper limit based on 2 or more measurements, okay, on 2 or more occasions. All right, so consistent high blood pressure readings. Now, the normal blood pressure is 120/80. Those are the higher limits. 120/80. Blood pressure is measured in millimeter mercury, which is abbreviated mmHg. This is just a unit of pressure. All right, we're saying hypertension is blood pressure above the upper limit of normal. Let us define or describe hypertension or high blood pressure. Okay, so basically, you all know, or we should be aware, that the blood in the body supplies oxygen to tissues as well as nutrients to tissues, to our cells, to our organs, okay? The blood brings in nutrients and carries away waste products. The channels through which blood flows are called the blood vessels. The channels that take blood out of the heart are known as the arteries, while the channels that take blood from the tissue, so the waste products, to the heart, back to the heart, are known as veins. Okay, so we have arteries and veins. Now, the channels through which the blood travels are known as arteries or the vasculature. Okay, and now I want to direct your attention to this left circular schematic or diagram here. By the way, this image, the entire diagram here, I got from the CDC website, so courtesy, thanks to the CDC, whoever did it. It's a good schematic. It explains what we want to describe here. So, all right, if you look at the circular diagram, what it's showing you are blood vessels. There are 2 images divided in the middle. On the left, you have what is known as the normal blood vessel. On the right is abnormal blood vessel. So let's describe this normal blood vessel. If you look at the thin 2 lines, both above and below this image here, or this diagram here, it's representing a normal blood vessel. These are the walls of the blood vessel, the 2 thin lines below and above. The round globular structures in the center are representing red blood cells, and this is blood flowing within the channel. Okay, this space, the reddish structures here, and the lighter red is representing blood. Okay, that's what blood would look like. So blood is traveling in some tube-like structure, albeit very flexible and winds. If you look to your right, the image to your right, this structure here in the center of the chest is the heart. Most people would have identified that. And then the structure leaving and hooking around the heart are the great vessels known as the aorta, and drops down, carries the majority of blood from the heart, and then is giving off branches all over the body as it descends towards and bifurcates towards the legs, divides into two, right? Okay, so these are the arteries. The normal blood vessel, which contains the blood that leaves the heart, should have thin walls. The walls are pretty flexible, thin walls. Okay, so normal blood pressure, we are saying, is 120 divided by 80. We are going to go in and describe what these numbers represent. Okay, all right, so I brought in that image again to make things clear. The upper number, or the upper normal number, 120, is known as the systolic blood pressure. This represents the force that is created as the heart contracts and pumps blood out of the heart into the blood vessels. And you can look at this. This is the beginning of that giant great vessel called the aorta. Now, the heart itself is made up of different types of muscles arranged in many different ways, thick layers, and a heart contains chambers within it, so spaces in which blood is going to flow in and collect. Then at a certain point, the heart is going to contract. It's a muscle. It's going to contract, and when it contracts, it's going to squeeze that blood out of the heart. So the artery, or the artery, is going to receive the blood. The arteries, as you can see here, are thin-walled structures as well, and they are also made of a muscle type called smooth muscle. That means it's going to relax and contract. It relaxes when it receives blood, and then it's going to contract at some point and pull that and push that blood forward. So the upper level normal pressure here is the pressure measured when that part of the artery receives the blood. So after the heart pumps the blood and it gets to the artery, that is the pressure it generates. So it's supposed to relax and contain the blood. As you can see here, white lumen, or white space, has perhaps 3 cells depicted here. If that blood vessel becomes abnormal or diseased, you would see a giant thickening here, right? In most cases, not always. In most cases, you see a giant thickening here of the walls of that blood vessel, and that creates tightening or reduction in that space, or the lumen through which the blood is going to flow. Okay, so we're going to look at what things can cause this. All right, so what does the upper number represents? It informs us about the conditions of the blood vessels, right? Because if the blood vessel thicken, as in this case, and let's take an analogy of a balloon. So we have 2 people opening the opening of a balloon and puts it under water, under a flowing tap to collect water. 2 people pulling that opening wide is going to allow the water from the tap to flow gently and straight into the balloon, widening the balloon as it expands. It is elastic. So that's what, the blood vessels are doing too. They would expand to contain the blood. Now, imagine that instead of 2 people, you have just 1 person trying to open the same opening of the balloon, right? And still under the same flow of water from the tap. What's going to happen? The water is going to just splash all over, because that opening is now reduced, right? The water is going to be splashing. Some water is going to get in, but it's going to splash. So that is the force that there will be an increased pressure here at this point, splashing the water, trying to get through that opening, but not being able to go through as it would have if the entire opening was wide open. So this is similar to what happens when there is high pressure. The lumen has, for some reason, reduced in size, and the blood is still the same amount of blood that would have been, pumped through the body. So that blood now has higher pressure, that generates a higher pressure. All right, so the upper blood pressure number, or the systolic blood pressure, informs us about the condition of the vessels. Now let me break here and tell you that this system is almost closed-looped. All right, think of it as a closed-loop system. There is blood that is pumped from the heart, and it connects to the blood vessels called the arteries. It delivers its content, payload, all over the body, right, bringing nutrients as well as oxygen to the rest of the body, and then it now collects in smaller vessels called veins, or as capillaries. It's exchanged that nutrient and its content with the tissues at the capillary level, and then collects the blood, starts collecting from tiny little veins all the way to big veins that then delivers the return products, including the waste, into the heart. It's almost a closed circular loop. Okay, so what you are going to have is the heart relaxing to contain blood, to receive the blood from the rest of the body through the veins, and then when it's reached a critical number, it's going to contract, so squeezing out that blood. And now we've looked at the pressure that is generated when that blood is squeezed out of the heart. Now, the lower number informs, or it is the force exerted as the heart relaxes to contain, between beats, to contain the blood that is coming into the heart. So this informs us, this number informs us about the conditions of the heart. Think of it now this way. Should any problem occur at the level of the heart, say some stiffening, causing some stiffening of the heart muscles, and that stiffening creates a problem on relaxation, so the blood doesn't, the heart doesn't relax as it should, all the way to contain the amount of blood it would normally contain, then there is going to also be a generation of a force, an increased pressure at the heart level. So what I'm trying to say here basically is that the lower number informs us about the condition of the heart. Okay, so you have a brief idea about what these numbers entail. Okay, all right. So as we have said, here's a normal blood vessel or artery, has a wide lumen, allows blood to flow. The pressure maximum, which is within normal, is 120. To the right of this circular diagram here is the abnormal blood vessel, and we're going to look at what can cause abnormality of the blood vessel. This is not the only condition that's going, the walls can still be thin, but just there might be substances deposited inside of the walls of the artery, and that's also going to generate pressure because it's reducing the path or the lumen, right, the area through which that blood would have flown. Take, for example, plaques, okay, from high cholesterol that can be built, or injury of some areas in the artery, and the body trying to repair that area is going to build some kind of clot or any kind of plaques, any kind of material trying to repair that, is going to create a reduction in the lumen, and that reduction in the lumen would further lead to increase in pressure. All right. Now, what are the underlying causes of hypertension? Folks, this is an interesting area. For me, it's very interesting because as I started medical school, we started talking about primary blood hypertension being something we called essential, which practically meant that we didn't really know what caused it. People just at some point developed high blood hypertension. Today, folks, we are becoming more and more aware that this is due to unhealthy lifestyle choices. I'm going to explain to you how that is created for the most part. Okay, let's look at secondary causes of hypertension. Secondary meaning secondary to some disease that is already present. Okay, diabetes, for example, we know it travels with hypertension. We're going to describe diabetes detailedly when we talk about diabetes and how it causes destruction of vessels. We mentioned this briefly before, but we're going to deal with diabetes at a future video. Cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular stands for the heart and its vessels, right? The heart is cardiac, and the vessels vasculature. So anywhere around the heart or its continuous blood vessel can create, if it's injured, can create increase in pressure, clearly, right? Then kidney disease. Kidney diseases, the kidney is a filtration unit of the body. If the kidneys have little openings to allow filtration, albeit very tiny openings and fine. Now there is filtration. Blood flows through the kidney and it gets filtered, removes some wastes and removes some excess water. Now if those little channels or filtration pores are injured, or if anything should happen to create a narrowing or reduction in their openings, is going to generate pressure similar to what I've just described in the artery. So kidney diseases are likely to cause hypertension. Now, because the pressure rises and then you have backtrack of high pressure all the way back towards the heart. Then endocrine tumors. Some endocrine tumors produce some hormones that are sympathetic in nature. By the way, if you did not watch my stress video, please go watch my stress video. It describes detailedly how the sympathetics can narrow blood vessels. So stress related as well. Stress is going to narrow the lumen of the blood vessels and therefore generating hypertension. If uncontrolled, it's going to be measured in multiple occasions and multiple days, and this is going to be diagnosed as hypertension. Endocrine tumors would release those substances and therefore creating that kind of a condition as well. Now, endocrine tumors are pretty rare. In some cases, we are looking around the world, right? In terms of around the world, in some cases, pretty rare, but it occurs as well. Sleep apnea is another cause for increased pressure in the vasculature. High systemic inflammation. Yes, guys, if there is inflammation, there is going to be thickening of the tissues, right? Due to inflammatory cells coming in, thickening of the tissues, and therefore reduction in openings, including the vasculature. So this can cause an increase in blood pressure, leading to hypertension if uncontrolled. So these are the most common underlying causes for hypertension. There are others that are somewhat rare. I'm not going to mention them, but some diseases can cause hypertension. These are the most common. Now, we're very interested in unhealthy lifestyle choices being the underlying cause of hypertension. Now, let's look at that. Not getting enough regular physical activity is a huge one, right? Let me explain why. Physical activity or exercise or movements, right? Actively moving the muscles generates a substance called nitric oxide, and more today research is showing us that nitric oxide relaxes the musculature of the body, especially also including the blood vessels. Okay, so there you can see it causes relaxation, and so it's going to open up and widen that lumen, that passageway. So among all the many advantages of exercise, whether it's weight in controlling weight or reducing stress, you also have relaxation, which decreases pressure at the vasculature level. Then, of course, uncontrolled stress, we've described that. Go watch that video. Overweight problems are going to also generate hypertension. The blood vessels are not going to change the numbers practically, right? So it's going to create some tightening of blood vessels and therefore generates hypertension at some areas. Unhealthy nutrition, this is similar in some ways to physical activity, because healthy nutrition such as green leafy vegetables, have them always in your diet, guys, because green leafy vegetables have a high content of magnesium. Now, some of you may know, especially some people who have had trouble during delivery, not trouble, but just some kind of pain and tightening and really unrest, have been given magnesium infusions to relax their musculature, whether it's the musculature of of the uterus, or it's the blood vessels. It's helping in reduction in the muscular tension. So magnesium is pretty important in the body. Mostly, a lot of enzymes use magnesium as well to perform their proper function. So magnesium is important. If we don't eat healthy, live, green leafy vegetables enough, we are going to be low in magnesium. Bad news, guys. Many people are very low in magnesium. There you go, green leafy vegetables and some other vegetables and fruits. Potassium is also low in most cases, and that can be a problem causing hypertension as well. Guys, if you have hypertension, we're not replacing your doctors here. See a health professional to get what you need, and then you should be recommended healthy lifestyle behaviors. Okay, so let's put on some statistics to this. African Americans in America, 40% of non-Hispanic African American men and women have high blood pressure. People, the awareness is not there. We think we know these things, but we are not consciously doing things that needs to be done. Okay, nearly 1 out of 2 adults in the United States has hypertension. These are really grim, very grim statistics. Please share these videos so more and more people can become aware. Approximately 1 in 5 adults with hypertension in the US are recommended to modify their health behaviors, lifestyle choices. Guys, hypertension is a silent killer because there are no symptoms as it starts. The symptoms usually come or present themselves really further down in the disease process, where it's getting into really bad complications. Some of these symptoms can be headaches, shortness of breath, bleeds, but you want to catch it and stop it before it gets to that point. Okay, complications of hypertension, guys: stroke, heart failure, arrhythmias. These things can lead to death. Please, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but hypertension is pretty important to be aware of and to control. Kidney disease, yeah, both ways. Okay, hypertension will cause kidney disease will cause hypertension. People, lifestyle choices is quite important, as you have just seen. Loss of vision, sexual dysfunction in some people. Hypertension is a huge problem. Please share these videos far and wide. We want to generate awareness. We want to bring our wellness to it. We want to bring our health to our maximum health and wellness. People, let's be conscious about hypertension. Let's share the information so others can improve their life. And let's keep happy, joyful, and healthy. See you in the next videos, which will talk about choices that we can make to improve or reduce or reverse hypertension. Thank you.